Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking part in this workshop dedicated to better regulation for SMEs. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today because this is a top priority for the Commission. My name is Mariana Ghițoi. I work for the European Commission, DG GROW, where I am responsible for better regulation for SMEs-related issues. I am going to be the host of this workshop today, and it is my pleasure to be here on the stage with honorable speakers that I would like to introduce. So we have Mrs. Marion Lemgau, Head of Division for General Issues of National and European SME Policy, German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Protection.
Welcome.
Mr. Petri Vorio, Vice Chair, Business Europe SME Committee. Mrs. Veronique Willems, Secretary General, SME United. And last but not least, Mr. Luis Arribarios, Secretary General of CEPIM, which is the Spanish Confederation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. Thank you very much for being here today. The name of this workshop is Putting Rules to the Test. This is about better regulation for SMEs. I would like to briefly inform you about the structure of this workshop. In the first part, we'll have a discussion and intervention presentations by the speakers on two specific questions that I will ask later. And in the second part, we'll have a question and answer session. Questions can be asked live here in the conference room, but please know that for delegates who follow online, it is also possible to ask questions via the online platform. So the second part will be dedicated to this Q&A, and we look forward to hear your questions and recommendations. Before giving the floor to our speakers, I would like to say that these workshops take place at a good moment in time. In a few months, we'll have European elections, and this will also be the end of the mandate of the current Commission. It is a good moment, first of all, to look back and take stock of what we have done, and also this is a good moment to look forward and building on the achievements of the past years to think what else is needed to make our better regulation work better. As I said at the beginning, better regulation is a top priority for the Commission, and this top priority has a strong SME and competitiveness focus. Just to illustrate this year the Commission has committed to a bold better regulation agenda via the two communications adopted, one in March on long-term competitiveness and the other one, the SME relief package in September. As you know, in March, the Commission committed to rationalize and cut by 25% the reporting obligations on businesses. But in addition to this, there are other commitments. For example, the commitment to measure, to identify a baseline, to identify cumulative burden in order to be able to measure the 25%. And also the commitment to include systematically in all impact assessments a competitiveness check, which also has an SME dimension. To these commitments, in September, the SME relief package introduced a bold better regulation agenda for SMEs, and I have the property of the terms, bold because, you know, the Commission will appoint a new SME envoy, and according to the vacancy notice, which was published online, the EU SME envoy will have a strong mandate because the person will have a role at all stages of policy making, from the early stages towards the end of the process. I have prepared a slide in order to summarize a bit the SME tools and the role of the SME envoy and of the SME envoys network. And we can see that we have SME tools at all stages of the policy making, and we have a bold role for the SME envoy and for the SME envoys network at all stages of the policy making. So far, the policy debate was rather focused on the SME test. But the SME test, and as you can see here, it's only a specific stage of the whole process. But what we are trying to make is to develop a holistic approach to better regulation and to the SME focus in policy making. Because the SME test solely cannot guarantee a user-driven legislation. There are, for example, details which are defined at the drafting of the legal proposals. In an SME test, in an impact assessment, you can decide whether to include or not SMEs in a proposal, but once they are included, there are details which are not assessed in the impact assessment. The level of fines, just to give you an example, if it is 4% of the turnover or 8%, this is an example on how we need to pay attention to the SME dimension at all stages of the policy making. So just for a very brief recap, at the initial stage of the policy making, we have the SME filter. This is a tool that we introduced last year in January, and it allows us to identify proposals that are relevant for SMEs since the publication of a call for evidence on the Have Your Say portal. The SME Invoice Network filter the proposals and help the Commission identify those that are relevant for SMEs and would need to be accompanied by a proportionate SME test. Going forward at the level of the impact assessment, so as I said, we have a systematic and proportionate SME test, and since March this year we have the competitiveness check. And in addition to this tool, the SME Envoy will have a role in promoting the use of a proper SME test methodology by the Commission services. The SME Envoy can also attend the hearings of the Regulatory Scrutiny Board in order to raise awareness on possible negative impacts, but also in order to suggest mitigating and support measures. The next stage after the impact assessment stage is the drafting of the legal proposal, and there the SME relief package introduced something new, which is a commitment to look at, to systematically consider the use of SME-friendly provision in the draft legal proposals. For example, longer transition periods for SMEs, proportionate fees, or even specific guidance to be provided by the Commission or by the Member States. Once a proposal is adopted by the Commission, it goes to the co-legislators. And here, the big novelty of the SME relief package is the fact that the SME Envoy can suggest the Council and the Parliament to perform an additional assessment, the so-called on-the-spot assessment, of substantial amendments to the Commission proposals. So this is something really new, to have a say in this interinstitutional assessment process, and towards the end of the process, at the evaluation of the legislation and before revision, the SME Invoice Network can make proposals for the annual working program of the Fit for Future platform, which look at specific evaluations which are needed and should be a priority in order to ensure that the legislation is fit for purpose. So we can see that we have SME tools at all stages of the better regulation process, and we have a consistent role for the EU SME Envoy and for the SME Invoice Network along this process. Now, this triggers consequences because reinforced focus on SMEs means that Commission services and other institutions would need data to be able to understand impacts on SMEs and in order to perform more granular assessments. So we need better data, better feedback, more granular feedback as regards the impact of these proposals on SMEs. And this leads me to my first questions to our panelists, which is, how can the SME Envoy network as a whole, but also SME representative organizations and SMEs in general, play a role in better collecting better information and better data for better EU policy making? I insist on this, better. And as I said, we take stock of what we have, and looking forward for the next Commission, my question to you is, what else would be needed in order to make these tools work, and in order to make sure that we'll have user-driven legislation? What should be the priority for the next Commission in the area of better regulation for SMEs? So let's start our discussion after this introduction. I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Marion Lemgau.
Thank you, Mariana. These are really challenging questions, and I'm not sure if we can sufficiently contribute them, but I will try my very best. So I would like to make some comments from the SME Envoys network perspective. I've been heading as a Sherpa for the for the German SME Envoy for more than 10 years. Yes, for those who do not know the network yet, the network is a policy advisory group that promotes SME-friendly regulation and policy making, and each member state has nominated a national SME envoy who is complementing the role of the European SME envoy, who is chairing this network. So, and each SME envoy serves as a kind of active interface with the national or the European SME community into the institutions of the European Union. So, what is our mission in the field of better regulation? We are, of course, dealing with more issues than better regulation. Access to finance, access to skills are one of the subjects we are dealing with, and regulation is also one field. For many, many years, and we always want to underline and persistently recall the importance and the necessity of good and an SME enabling regulation. So taking into account and also probably reflecting the variety and heterogeneity of SMEs. The quality of EU legislation is extremely important for the functioning of the single market, for doing of businesses as well. But I think it's also very important for the credibility and the trust in the respective institutions, may it on the EU level, but as well as on the member states level. So what is the network doing? We want to make sure that legislation is coherent, is clear, and is effective, especially for SMEs and especially for the smallest one. But the reality is looking something different. So in fact, SMEs have identified regulatory obstacles and administrative burden as their biggest problem. So maybe we are not doing enough. Mariana has just explained the work of the SME network along the policy-making cycles. There's the SME filter, there is raising awareness, there is the contribution to the Fit for Future platform and the Single Market Enforcement Task Force. And the Commission itself has launched a toolbox of better regulation instruments. And when preparing myself for this workshop, I was nearly overwhelmed by 600 pages of a better regulation toolbox. So I think we do have the instruments, but yeah, is it enough? Do we need more instruments? I'm not sure. I think it depends on the person and its mindset that matters. So everyone being responsible in the legislative process has to take into account the view, the perspective of SMEs. So the question you put to us is, how can we do better? Yeah, so I think a prerequisite is that the new Commission will renew and strengthen the mandate of the SME Envoy network and make full use of the Envoy network as a high-level advisory group. And it is indispensable that the Envoy network will be chaired by a dedicated European SME envoy, a high-ranking person who advocates SMEs' interests as well as into the Commission, as into other institutions. And he or she shall start his work very soon and over the current legislative period. Yeah, what we can do better is maybe we can serve better as an interface, persistently explaining and advocating SMEs' needs, improving the communication of EU policy to our SME businesses and in our member states, by probably discussing new ways and methods exchange in member states. So in Germany, for instance, we have developed a concept of so-called reality checks, which might serve as a good example also for policy making on the EU level. We can do better by further encouraging SMEs contributing to public consultations, and we could ensure their representation in relevant groups, in relevant advisory bodies on the EU level. And yeah, we can probably nerve and persistently call on the Commission to put better regulation at the top of its agenda, of its policy agenda, and to drastically reform and simplify and fast-track administrative procedures and, yeah, sustainably reduce administrative burdens. So the second question was ideas for the new Commission. What can be priorities of the new Commission? I think that we need a regulation that truly turns regulation into an element to strengthen SMEs and not to burden them and not to punish them. Yeah, to enable the twin transformation, we should recall the existing principles that we have. That is, think small first, a very simple guideline, and the other is digital by default, also a very simple guideline. We should thoroughly apply the impact assessments, especially the SME tests. We should take a more holistic approach, maybe a user-oriented approach, focusing on real life cycles, real life cases, sorry, not cycles, but cases on real life cases. We should avoid duplicate reporting and make use of automated, digitalized and standardized reportings. And maybe we should more focus on quality than on speed. And yes, these are my first ideas for the upcoming Commission. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Petri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation. This is very important discussion, and today's topic, better regulation, it's of course key for European businesses and especially SMEs. I mean, what do we aim with the better regulation? I mean, it should allow entrepreneurs to take risk, access the funding, invest, scale up business, and also to contribute to the green transition. The next Commission's priority should be definitely competitiveness. How do we perform in the global competition with the US and China and others this current situation world? In this, both SMEs and better regulation play vital role. And European SMEs, we basically know they employ over 100 million people and contribute half of the European GDP, so that matters. And of course, there is no successful Europe without successful SMEs. That's how it goes. By better regulation, we need to make single market competitive enough to our own entrepreneurs, first of all, to invest in the Europe and scale up their businesses. Secondly, attractive single market with 450 million consumers it is also a great asset to negotiate free trade agreements with our international partners, and this way strengthen the supply chains and resilience of the whole European Union by more offensive trade policies. These last years, they have been very challenging for both single market and SMEs. And for this reason, we need increased attention on how the regulatory environment can be shaped and improved. Last year at SME Assembly with Veronique from SME United and Eurochambers, we presented SME test benchmark report. And we are very happy to notice that this has taken steps forward like you showed earlier. And this is also a very good example of how an existing tool, if well implemented, can make life easier for SMEs and improve the regulation. I would like to briefly comment on what we see as positive developments, especially regarding the recent announcement made in the SME relief package and what is still missing. The SME relief package, it comprises a number of actions which we warmly welcome. For example, when we talk about specific SME-friendly provisions in new legislative proposals. We support the Commission commitment in line with the recommendations of our SME test benchmark report. This action is even more relevant considering that 4 out of 5 legislative initiatives are relevant for SMEs. So when we have the SME filter, we have to remember that 80% actually is relevant for SMEs. So good intentions must be backed by political commitment, of course, for more consistent application of the SME test guidelines. This should be considered a collective responsibility of all Commission services. And to go further and support its improvement, we ask the European Commission to rapidly develop the analysis of the SME test in its annual burden survey report, in particular by highlighting the qualitative changes. Then secondly, we welcome that post of dedicated SME envoy to be filled by end of this year basically, and we ask for a strong, committed EU SME envoy with an entrepreneurial mindset as driving force of the EU SME strategy implementation, and of course enough resources to support this work. And the EU SME envoy's participation to the regulatory scrutiny board hearings is also a very positive step, and this is very good news. And key takeaways of these hearings should be also included under the regular EU SME SME network reporting session of the EU Competitiveness Council. Member states also have their very important role to play. National SME envoys have a central role in complementing the role of the EU SME envoy, especially when promoting SME-friendly regulation and policy making at national level. And we also see that SME envoys have a key role to encourage and SMEs to participate in public consultations and different kind of impact assessment processes. I mean, it's often that they don't know about it, so we, SME envoys, in cooperation with us, business organizations, have work to do in this sector, definitely, and we can do that together. And then third, last comment, while the Commission has a crucial role in making sure that proposed EU legislation is SME-proofed, other European institutions are equally responsible. We need to remember this, that it's not only about Commission. This is particularly true for amendments which may introduce direct or indirect as well as accumulative regulatory burden or costs for SMEs. So there was 2016 interinstitutional agreement actually on better lawmaking that already mandates Council and Parliament to conduct an impact assessment of substantial amendments made into Commission proposals. So this is important to bring up as well. All these measures regarding SME relief package, they are warmly welcome. It looks very good on the paper, but now we need to do the things and make things happen. That's very important to do it together. And to conclude, I would like to add one extra point, which is very important for Business Europe. As said already, it is crucial that EU legislative proposals do not include direct or indirect or accumulative regulatory burden or cost to SMEs. And to improve this situation, we propose to the Commission that they should pilot at EU level an SME program on reducing cumulative regulatory burden. This program would identify, measure, and reduce cumulative regulatory burden of existing legislation in specific SME sectors. The pilot program should be based on good examples from our member countries that are already existing, for example, from Netherlands and Germany. And to sum up, to deliver better regulation requires always good cooperation, public-private cooperation, and I'm very happy this SME Assembly is a great example of this cooperation, and thank you very much for arranging this event.
Thank you as well. Veronique.
Yes,
Please.
thank you. First of all, thank you also for, again, dedicating a session this year to better regulation for small companies. I'm going to try not to repeat what the colleagues already said. I think you had a very interesting overview with the whole SME dimension in the regulatory cycle. I think that's also very interesting for all stakeholders to see when and where they can best contribute to that process. And of course, as business organizations, we're also part of that SME Envoy network where we contribute and are allowed to join the discussions with the member states. So in that perspective, we also have a good approach. I liked when you said that it also depends a lot of the person who is doing the file. And I think one of the inspiring things that Professor Saraswati yesterday said was that we all have to have an entrepreneurial mindset, and that we all have to think a bit entrepreneurial to make sure that we can create that SME-friendly society. Maybe for starters as well, as SME United, we have never been against regulation, because that's often a discussion that we have with other stakeholders. Yeah, but with better regulation, you want deregulation. I think for each society, we need rules to organize that society. But of course, as Petri also mentioned, we need simple, clear rules that are applicable for small companies. And in that perspective, we did a joint exercise last year, Business Europe, Eurochambers, SME United, to evaluate how the SME test was performed in 26 impact assessments. And on that basis, we further built this year with an opinion in the Fit for Future platform, really developing further with my co-rapporteur from the Netherlands, Pieter Waasdorp, suggestions to further improve. And I'm going to take out some of those suggestions specifically on your better information and better data. And of course, then further also with the SME relief package, the Commission is building on further improving those activities. And I think if we look back, what has been done, and where I think we all congratulate you as well, is really taking the task of the SME test serious, trying to further improve the work, especially in DG GROW. And indeed, now we have to also take all the other DGs along and all the Commission services to take up that part. If I look at the SME test opinion that will be approved in the Fit for Future platform in 2 weeks, for better data collection, we had a few very concrete proposals. The first one is providing a planning of surveys, studies, data that is needed within the Commission services to make sure that organizations can collect the data timely and in a good way. I want to give a concrete example. When I was still working at national level, my organization conducted in the month of March a survey on another important topic this moment, late payments. And I believe in the month of October, Commission came up with their own survey asking to do again a survey on late payments. I think all representatives of business organizations in the room will say you cannot go to your entrepreneurs twice in the same year with the same topic, because they will just send you away and say, sorry, but we've replied already. I have people supporting me in the backstage. That's good. Secondly, the cooperation between Commission services and member states, making sure that what is available data within the member states, that also flows to the Commission and that we don't have to, again, do surveys, was one of the suggestions that was put forward. And linked to that also the cooperation between the Enterprise Europe Network and representative SME organizations. Enterprise Europe Network is, I think, one of the dedicated flows from the Commission to collect information through SME panels and so on. So making sure that they have a good connection on a local level with the present organizations to make sure that they have a broad outreach to small companies is certainly an element to take along in the future as well. A fourth proposal in the opinion is to increase consistent application of the consultation methods by the different DGs. And there I think that, as I mentioned, DG GROW is already making several steps. But as you mentioned, other Commission services also need to see those stakeholders of the SME community as important contributors to their work, and also include the consultation methods there to make sure that they get the necessary data. And then a final one, to increase motivation of the SME stakeholder society, and that's what Petri referred to, saying we also have a role to play. If we want to encourage our organizations to contribute and to collect more information, we also have to show them a return. And in that perspective, improving the explanation that is given by Commission services on what they did with the input, and what they took into account and what they didn't take into account and for which reasons, is a very important incentive for organizations across Europe to really be able to collect that information. And also towards SMEs say, look, we will be able to give you feedback if you now help us to assess the impact that this proposal will have on you. So that's a few very actionable recommendations. Looking towards the next Commission, what I hear from our members now, and Louis will probably fill in the gaps there, I expected last year that small companies were going to raise a regulatory crisis next year or the year afterwards, when all the initiatives that have been taken during this mandate have to be developed by them or implemented by them. I fear that regulatory crisis has arrived already. If I hear member organizations in different member states say our companies are saying they are going to demonstrate because they cannot take the flow of new rules anymore, it's too much, and we've never heard that in our 20 or 30 years of career, that concerns me. And I think that's also the message that got across the Commission with the call for competitiveness, with the call for checking which rules you implement and how. So for us, implementation and support on implementation is one of the key elements for the next Commission. A second one is, instead of amending existing rules that do not function with new rules, looking at the implementation of the rules that are already in place. And I think the Single Market Enforcement Task Force is an example of looking at the rules that are in place and how we can improve the implementation further. Those are important elements rather than bringing new rules to the table again. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronique, very much. Just as a quick feedback, you mentioned the opinion on the SME test of the Fit for Future platform. This was included in the SME relief package with the commitment to build on those recommendations and make sure that the SME test will be further strengthened into a more granular analysis, including of indirect impacts on SMEs.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for these operational conclusions. And last but not least, Luis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, but quite difficult to fill the gaps because I completely agree with the previous intervention. Okay, first of all, I play at home, so please, as a Spanish in representation of Spanish SMEs, welcome to everybody to Spain, to Bilbao. I hope you wish this amazing city, the country Basque, and his amazing gastronomy, I hope in these days. Okay, as I said, difficult to fill the gaps, many notes, but I think I'm going to give a step back, not because Petri said, Veronique too, but I would like to emphasize something I always said to the different administration I speak, like CEPIME. It doesn't matter the administration, regional, national, local, and in this occasion, European. And it's the reality of the business. In my case, Spain, but in general, in Europe. But in Spain, the fourth economy of Europe, we only have a few, like 5,000 companies that is not SMEs. The rest is all SMEs. It's 99.8 in our case. Most important, near 95% are micro SMEs, less than 10 employees, and the average is near 5. Depends how you measure is the data. And why I say that? Because it's my first proposal, I think Petri and Veronique said, yesterday's entrepreneur mindset. In my case, I said, please stand in the shoes of the women and men who run a business nowadays. Really, it's so difficult. Veronique said in terms of legislation, but nowadays it's so difficult. After COVID, inflation, we can find people to do the transition in between them, financial problems. So please, always that you think in regulation, please think in that kind of person. No? Of course, the continued advance of the European integration is reflecting in an increasing number of national laws. In this case, in Spain, we can see a clear upward trend on the regulatory production in national and regulatory level. Since 2016 with 2022, it's an increase of 9% and 16% increase in the regional level. The provision of service sector is among the ones more affected. And the data, SME in Spain recover that kind of SME, maybe 4 or 5 employees, receive near than 1 million pages of legislation per year, national and regional. Sorry, we need to stop it. It's impossible, no? And as I said, please put out a photo of them when you start thinking about any regulation, because it's very important to avoid the disaffection of this person with in general, no? But especially nowadays with European Union. No? They are the spine of our economies, 66% of the employees here in Spain. And if we put the level so high, and it's impossible for them to achieve, it's a very high risk for us, no? Because probably they will go below in different ways. Okay, the most dangerous will be a stop. No, it's I can do it. No, but you speak with them, it's an average of 8, and I say I can do it because it's many things to do in my plate. No, so stopping informal economy, important in Spain, unfair competition. So please, must be careful because the disaffection is probably a huge problem. Second point, and I see the time is not very good. The power of these impossible infrastructures is social dialogue. Veronique said, and I'm going to repeat. No, in our case, CEPIME integrate about 3,000 organizations, different in sector, different in territorial one, and in Spain, in the social dialogue, CEPIME and COE. CEPIME is inside SME United, COE in Business Europe. This is an amazing infrastructure, and we have to use it. In Spain, CEPIME, together with COE, has a project, full cooperation with the government for more than 15 years to tackle legislative burdens. We made more than 600 proposals tabled by both organizations and materialized in a number of agreements. It has meant an estimated saving of 1,600 million euros. So it's an example of cooperation and specific issues. I think all of us tell about this. Many of them is repeated documentation requested by the different administration, which is terrible. So Veronique said, to do our job, we need time. We need think about the person we are speaking about. Maybe they probably feel on Sunday morning, Saturday night in their homes because they are orchestra women and men and the financial director, operation, and whatever. And they have to feel it's important. It's very important that this, how I said before, no? Okay, I speak completely agree with the semi-relief package. I think it's a good start. And to end, conclusion, competitiveness. Priority is finally at the center of the European policy, but in this case, the competitiveness of our SMEs is the competitiveness of our economy. Okay, to improve in competitiveness, address the administrative, regulatory burdens our companies are facing, hindering their growth, magic word, I have no time, and thus preventing a steady progress in the twin transition, and of course, another magic word, productivity. Please be careful with compliance industry, must be careful, and please should create a regulatory breathing space for our SMEs. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luis. Thank you to all the speakers. You have put forward a number of ideas and recommendations. I would like now to give the floor to the audience. Please raise your hand if you have questions.
There's one question.
Yes, over there.
Thank you. Hello, it's Lena Whittaker from Eurocommerce. We're the Retail and Wholesale Representation Association in the EU, where 1 in 4 of all SMEs are in retail and wholesale. I think this has been an excellent discussion. I wish I'd been faster at writing to write down all of the ideas. But there was one thing that I just wanted to point out that seems a little incongruous sometimes in what I'm hearing, is that there's a need for more data, the speed of regulation that's coming, and also the fact that SMEs are dealing with so much already. Putting these all together makes it much more difficult to get that data. And I think this is perhaps something that needs to just be thought of a little bit more when creating the tools and the surveys and everything. And I think there is also some perhaps a reflection here that could be taken, that the Commission also has its own better regulation guidelines, and we already see with the evaluation of the unfair trading practices in the food supply chain that a proposal has already been made to change those rules just exactly at the same time that the Commission is launching its own evaluation. So it has the tools and it says it's going to look and evaluate its own data, but we see that the process isn't completely being followed, or the sequence is a little bit out of whack. But there was one thing that I also wondered, because I see a lot of the discussion about the silos that might exist between different services of the Commission. But my question would also be that within DG GROW, there's been now, for the last mandate, the creation of the ecosystems. And could there be a reflection also inside of the Commission that where proposals are actually made originating from a DG, that actually there's more of a consultation process within that DG? And I think DG GROW is perhaps a great example of this, where perhaps there could then be a check-in with each of the people that are responsible for those ecosystems. They're looking towards where the future's going in terms of the transition pathway for each of them. Each of these transition pathways have a big element about where the SMEs are going. So these are the people that actually could perhaps give that check that also is not available for the surveys. And okay, maybe I'm also highlight that there's also, we are responsible for and involved with the retail, but retail is involved in everything. And I'm sure this is also the same for many different SMEs as well.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Please.
Hello, my name is Munchinetta Tinapel, and I work within the bridging of fashion and policy. So I work with SME fashion brands and helping them understand EU legislation. I do have a quick question. You emphasise the importance of SME enabling regulations. What are some of the examples of current EU legislations that you believe are particularly effective or ineffective in that regard?
Thank you. Let's take another questions before trying to address these questions.
Hi, I'm Celia. Working?
Good morning. My question is to all members of the panel. In order to try to link with the presentation of Luis Ariballos, our Secretary General, how is possible to try to press since the European Commission in order to deregulate the current situation of restriction regulations for the SMEs, especially the smallest one, the tiniest one, in order to try to simplify and deregulate the current situation that is creating a real problem for the mounting of obligations and requisites requirements that we have to follow. We think that's something that can be saved in each country, but because in our case, our government is trying to establish more and more requirements, and I think something has to be done from Europe. Thank you.
Let's first try to address these questions before going to a second round of questions. I will start by providing a few insights from the Commission side, and then I will invite you to share your views. Indeed, as I said, we will have this reinforced focus on SMEs and on competitiveness, which will require more granular analysis and therefore more data. We have tools to collect those data, for example, the open public consultations and the SME panels, and the call of evidence at the beginning of the process, but participation of SMEs, for example, is very low. How can we make more publicity? How can we raise awareness? How can we encourage more feedback? Sometimes, as you said, invite member states to share available data or share available surveys, etc., because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. At the same time, we need more, let's say, innovative methods to collect data, because surveys that take 3 months are not necessarily adapted to the sequencing of the policy making. As you said, Veronique, in the Fit for Future opinion on the SME test, we need to look more at specific case studies, pilot case, and to have a reality check. What does it mean, a specific rules for an enterprise? I like an example of an SME from the chemical sector. They show to us that the label put on a product is concerned by 7 pieces of different legislation, and each modification to one of the pieces of legislation will imply for the enterprise the need to refill the stock of labels. So very concrete. And this is the kind of feedback we need to make us understand what does it mean in the real life for an entrepreneur. So maybe not fully fledged studies which take time and cost money, but really more real life examples of how existing rules on rules in the making can impact SMEs, and also how can we make these rules work better? What would be needed to make sure that these rules are adapted to the needs of SMEs? So this is something we are reflecting upon. As regards the question on examples of effective regulations for SMEs and examples of regulations which do not work well for SMEs. I would like to hear more from the SME organizations, and I would like to take the opportunity to remind you that currently there is a call for evidence running until the end of the month on reporting obligations that are burdensome for companies. So please, you still have time to provide your feedback via the Have Your Say portal and inform the Commission of areas and particular pieces of legislation which you consider burdensome for businesses, because the Commission is trying to collect evidence in order to fit in the ongoing exercise of cutting by 25% regulatory burdens. And last remark on how we work internally, how the ecosystems are involved in the better regulation cycle. I would like to remind you that the blueprint for the development of the transition pathways has an SME check, which is a list of important issues to be kept in mind in the development of the transition pathway, but also in the development of the legislation applying to that specific ecosystem. I think that the transition pathways are based on a holistic approach which involve participation of all relevant services. And looking forward, as it was suggested, indeed better feedback, but also entrepreneurial mindsets will be important in order to make sure that existing tools really deliver for businesses. I think that DG Grow, I work for DG Grow, is an example of DG leading on the better regulation agenda, changing the mindset within the Commission, and making all this shift possible. So as you have seen, we have now an SME and competitiveness focus along the better regulation cycle. If I may, I would compare this to a kind of paradigm shift, because I am not aware of another regulatory system in the world which does, this kind of approach. So we have the tools. We also have the entrepreneurial mindset and the political will to do it. So please work with us and help us to make this possible. These are my remarks. The floor is yours if you would like to comment to the questions received so far. Veronique?
Petri, do you want to?
Okay, just briefly. I mean, I'm taking just this fashion industry example, very, very good question. And I mean, as I used to work as a corporate banker for 15 years, so I like funding. Yesterday's keynote speech, a little bit, I was a little bit started to think about this issue. I mean, what is the role of the financial industry? And it's very important. And well, I come to this question, and as it's fashion industry, it's about ESG and sustainability and all the regulation around that, CSRD, taxonomy, everything. I mean, that is not directly addressed to the SMEs, but indirectly and a cumulative way. And this is a big question for large companies, how to fulfill their reporting requirements, I mean, starting from the next year, for example. But I mean, SMEs have no idea, but it's clear fashion industry, all the other industries where there are subcontractors, suppliers, SMEs, that, I mean, for example, many large companies, 5% of their carbon footprint comes actually from their own production. And the rest of it, 95%, comes from the supply chains, where there are a lot of SMEs that need to report exactly the same things to the large company that is required to report. And this is, I mean, when we come to the funding, I mean, the funding is the driving force of everything, investment, growth, and everything. And then in the future, when you talk to the corporate bankers now, I mean, definitely the availability and price of the funding will be dependent on these ESG measures that also SMEs need to take into account. And that's still rather challenging.
I first was thinking, what am I going to put forward here? I think the fact that the think small first principle is gaining ground is an important one. I also took the quote from Commissioner Breton, let the SMEs do what they do best, business. I'm very happy, and I'm going to use that as much as I can now. But I think one of the elements in the SME relief package was also the once-only principle. If we can start applying that really to the fullest, that's already going to help small companies a lot, because that means that when they provide information to authorities once, they cannot be asked to provide that information again. And the second thing that I was thinking about is a digital single gateway, because that's de facto also trying to bring all those one-stop shops. One-stop shops already indicates that it's not one-stop shop, but that we try to bring them together. And they're also, Europe is now working together with the member states to bring as much as possible procedure together, permitting requests together, and what else. So if you can really live up to the expectations there and implement that, I think that's going to be a huge support for small companies as well. On the question on how do we simplify all those rules for small companies, I think it's one step at a time. We cannot just erase everything that is there, because a lot of the rules that are in place also support or help small companies. What I do think we have to avoid is putting forward slogans and not being able to live up to the expectations. And I think the big example is the one in, one out, where I hear now a lot of entrepreneurs say, no, it's not one in, one out, it's more in and none out. So that's a sentiment that at the moment lives among entrepreneurs, and I think we have to be careful with launching things and then not being able to really show what is being done. And then Lina, on the proposal of the links with the transition pathways and so on, we will see whether we can find a way to include that as an example still in the SME test opinion next week.
Okay, very quick, and in my opinion, a national organization about data. Okay, I think here is many organizations. I think probably you have the same experience like me. In this case, I think it's two levels. At the beginning, when a legislation starts, and at the end, when we have the final question. So what's the problem? But at the beginning, I'm going to use a fashion organization. I think it's something that organization must improve, and we have to use something like marketing to create, I don't know, like in the small and medium enterprise, the necessity. They say, okay, I have to listen about that. I have to opinion, and we have to use marketing as in other ways to improve that. Because if you have them at the beginning, you are going to have them at the end of the position. And it's something that I speak many times with Veronique, because it's a problem that, of course, of SM United, but it began in our organization. And about the important regulation, I think I would like to congratulate Commission for the light payment. I think it's very important for SMEs. Really, congratulations about that.
Just to add 10 seconds, I mean, I was going to say some solutions also. I mean, it's very nice that, I mean, ESG, sustainability, that is the big thing of today and tomorrow, the next generations. I mean, SME relief package, to set these ESG reporting standards to SMEs, I mean, there is definitely demand. And then also this 25% rationalization goal to make this thing happen, it's definitely something that we should push for.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone, for your insights and views. We are at the end of this session. If you have questions, please still send them via the chat, and I would be happy to bilaterally engage with you today and tomorrow morning. If you allow me just a few seconds, I would like to draw, if possible, some conclusions from our discussion today. First of all, I would say that we have the tools We need to make them work and deliver results, tangible results to European SMEs. We need a holistic approach to better regulation, looking not at only SME tests, but at the whole policy cycle, because the output, the final law, is a result of a process, and we really need to make sure that we have appropriate SME focus at all stages of this process. How to collect more data? We'll need first of all to have to add to existing tools more agile channels of communication to make sure that we get more reality checks and more pilot examples from the real economy, and we need help from the SME Voice Network and for the European and National SME Association in order to raise awareness about the existing call for evidence and online public consultations to get better inputs, but also existing studies or surveys carried out at national level. Looking forward, we need a competitiveness commission, a commission which has an entrepreneurial mindset and defines rules with SMEs at heart. We need a better user-driven approach, laws which are written by putting ourselves in the footsteps of an entrepreneur. And I think that it was mentioned here, we need more transparency in terms of what we do in terms of better regulation. For example, it was suggested to include a chapter on the SME test in the annual Barton survey, and even to have more transparency on the RSB hearings and the participation of the EU SME envoy. These are just a few conclusions. We took note of all the recommendations and insights brought forward here today, and we are looking forward to work together and see how much better regulation can be. Thank you very much.